You know, my cousin's life is just one of the many that we've lost in this corridor, and one of the many people that should still be with us today if we had put the resources into modernizing the safer transportation corridor throughout the reservation. So the work that the Secretary and that Senator Tester are doing is literally saving lives, and I just want to take a quick second to say thank you so much for that. And not only is your work saving lives for us here in this community, but it's also reducing wildlife collisions with animals such as grizzly bears and moose, whose numbers continue to dip drastically and dangerously low. So your work is just so critical for our community when it comes to tourism and safety as well along this highway corridor. As a rural area, the livelihoods of so many people depend on infrastructure and infrastructure that you support and prioritize. As a state senator, I'm truly grateful to work with sovereign nations like CSKT. Grateful to be a member of CSKT, who is really a beacon of hope for our lands and resources, who take this highway corridor and incorporate it as a part of the living life here on the reservation with the animals, the water, the trees, and the wildlife. And they've created a safer place to live and both visit throughout the reservation and across Montana. So we're so lucky to have so many great partners in Montana, and we are fortunate to have the Secretary and Senator John Tester who actually follow through with their promises. So I just want to say lem lench and thank you.
Chairman, we just swap mics real quick just so it doesn't come down.
Should I just put that back in? Help? Get out of the way. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Michael Dolson. I'm chairman of the Confederated Salish tribes, and I'm here to welcome the Secretary here to our homeland, and to say how glad we are that he's visiting, and how proud we are of the highway that he and all the money that's been put into it has built our people's way. And we're standing here in front of our overpass for our animal relatives, and that is so important to our culture, to take care of not only ourselves but all of the Creator's world, including the animals and the plants. And so that it's so nice to be able to say that this highway was built to take care of that and be part of our culture. Growing up, as Shane has mentioned, that I'd always heard of 93 as being one of the reddest highways in the nation. I mean, it was in the top 10 highways in the nation for accidents and death. And so it's so good to have the projects that are going forward to make it as safe as possible. And this last section, the money that's just been appropriated is so welcome. Yeah, we're so grateful to Secretary Buttigieg and the Department of Transportation for coming and helping us with this road. I remember as I worked at Salish Community College years ago, I'd have to cross 93 before we had the overpass. I remember actually standing, waiting. I timed it 12 minutes before I had an opportunity to actually get across 93. And so making those kind of improvements really is a lifesaver. Yeah, we definitely want to thank Senator Tester for his participation in pushing through the bipartisan infrastructure law and getting the ability to bring money to this project. We got to thank everybody. The tribe works with the state, works with the federal government, all as partners in producing a safe highway for the rest of us. And so, Mr. Secretary, thank you for coming, seeing what the project is, and supporting this. It's a great project, and it will save lives. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman Dolson, for welcoming us here to CSKT's lands, and for your leadership. Thanks to Vice Chairman Tom McDonald. We've had a great day. Good conversations at the over at the council chamber, really getting a sense of the opportunities and the needs here, and we're proud to team up with the tribes and with these communities to bring the resources that are going to help save lives and make everyday life a little easier in this region. I want to recognize the Montana DOT officials who have been working in partnership with CSKT for their good work. I want to recognize and thank Senator Morigeau for welcoming us to his district, and for welcoming us wearing both hats as a tribal member and as a state leader, and for sharing that personal story that reminds us why this is so important. Thank you. Thanks to our own DOT team, notably Lucia Oliveira and our whole Federal Highway Division team that's here. Thanks for your work covering, I know, a lot of ground literally on behalf of our department. And I want to echo the thanks that are going around here to Senator Tester, not just for his advocacy for good projects like this benefiting Montana, but for the fact that the whole country has this bipartisan infrastructure law, in no small measure because Senator Tester was part of a small group of bipartisan senators willing to work across the aisle to negotiate and pass the bill that created the funding for all of this to be possible. We have been struck by the natural beauty of this part of the country. It's been extraordinary, I think good for all of us. Our whole team, since arriving at your great airport in Missoula yesterday, has felt our blood pressure go down a little bit as we've been traversing this area. We've noticed the beauty of your mountains, your rivers, your roads. But of course, we've also noticed the number of small crosses along the side of the roads in too many places that are a reminder of something that our whole country is going through, a crisis in deaths in our roadways that affects every state and every region, but disproportionately affects rural areas and disproportionately affects tribal members. The stretch of US 93 that we're highlighting today is an example of the need and an example of the opportunity. Tribal members and residents of western Montana know this road so well and know that it has a history of crashes, that it can be especially dangerous for people who live around it to walk or to bike. Part of that danger is due to outdated surface conditions. Part of it's due to the lack of a separated, protected bike or pedestrian path, especially when you've got freight or logging trucks doing 70 miles an hour just a few feet away. Part of it's due to the frequency of wildlife vehicle crashes. And during our conversation earlier, the chairman called a show of hands, and just about every hand went up of everyone around that table having personally experienced a wildlife vehicle crash. And of course, when there is a crash, it also brings this whole important highway to a standstill because there's not an alternative route. Thoughtfully designed improvements to other parts of US 93 were developed years ago, but this stretch was left for a later date because it needed particularly careful planning, because it needed community input, and like any project, because it needed funding. Well, thanks to an impressive collaboration between the Confederated, Salish, and Kootenai tribes, Montana's Department of Transportation, and other communities in this region, you did that careful planning, you turned that community input into a very strong application, and now your work is going to save lives. So, on behalf of the Biden administration, I'm so proud to be here to formally celebrate over $110 million in funding through that bipartisan infrastructure law to improve the North Ninepipe corridor of US 93. We're going to reshape a number of slopes that have historically contributed to crashes. We're going to build a path for people to walk, bike, or ride a horse adjacent to, but separated from that highway. We're going to construct a number of bridges and culverts to facilitate animal crossings, which, as you know, will protect animals and people. Bottom line, this is going to be a safer and better road for everybody who counts on it. The funding will improve almost all of the remaining stretch of US 93 within the Flathead Reservation that still needed to be fixed. The most recent funding for this stretch came from a new DOT program that was created by that bipartisan infrastructure law called the Reconstructing Communities Program. And as CSKT pointed out in their application, this is a project that brings special meaning to the word community, reflecting that it is not just the people, but also the land and the animals and nature that form part of the community here. This project respects community in that greatest sense, and it allows CSKT to build a road that meets the needs of its people while still protecting the land. Across my engagements with Indian country, dating back to work I did as mayor with our Pikagan band of Potawatomi Indians, I've often heard of the principle that when making decisions today, we should think about the impact 7 generations forward. And I think that's especially fitting in infrastructure work because infrastructure lasts for generations. And that means the positive or negative implications of those decisions can last for generations. So it's worth taking the time to get it right. But also, once there is agreement on an idea and a good project is ready to move, it shouldn't take 7 generations to get it done. I often say the best ideas aren't coming from Washington, but the more the funding is. And that's what we love about this project. Here and across the state, we are partnering to build infrastructure that'll serve the people of Montana now and for generations to come. I want to offer just a few examples of it. In Missoula, we're helping to modernize and expand the airport, which we saw yesterday. An important facility accommodating increased travel, but too small to meet that demand. We think that competition is going to lower ticket pricing because more airlines will serve the area. In rural Waibo County in eastern Montana, there are 4 bridges vital for farmers moving their products onto I-94 to reach the rest of the country. But those bridges are so old, some of them made of timber and in such poor condition that they force trucks to detour sometimes as much as 200 miles. So we're helping replace or rehabilitate those bridges. And in Billings, we're helping to improve safety at 11 intersections and along 6 corridors, installing high visibility crosswalks, improved lighting and sidewalks, shared use paths, and more. Make sure the kids have a safer way to get to school. We know that many of these transportation projects, including 3 projects that we're supporting right here on US 93, were not expected to move forward for many years and maybe even decades, because there was just simply too much to do and not enough money to do it with. And that was true at the local, state, and federal levels, but that changed with the bipartisan infrastructure law. And now, all told, we have announced $2.4 billion to improve transportation across Montana. So for that, I again want to thank Senator Tester for bringing Republicans and Democrats together to make this law a reality, and for shaping it to make sure that it served rural and tribal communities, something that has certainly benefited Montana, but I've seen serve so many rural areas across the country. I want to end by repeating my thanks to MDT and CSKT for their strong partnership, for the hospitality today, and for this model of building infrastructure that serves both people and land, which we're going to take back with us and think about as we continue in this work across the United States. So congratulations again on the terrific work happening here, and we're excited about what this is going to lead to for the future. Thanks very much for the chance to celebrate it with you.